Hey, welcome back to the Seats to Streets podcast. I am your host, J.R. Horn, and with me always is the ever popular Brian Gorman over there.
Ever
And we're
popular.
glad you're tuning in with us for another episode of just listening to us chat and hoping to give value and infer things to you. So it is a working farm around here, and the kids are out of school. So if you happen to hear the pitter patter of giant feet above my head or around me at some point, or the random flushing of a toilet because I'm under a bathroom in the basement office, well, welcome to working from home in this age. So thanks, COVID, for helping us all figure out that this is kind of normal now. So, and I don't know if you can see, but I got my lovely drawings of my daughter back here, Brian. She my lower part of the whiteboard, she comes down and leaves me notes and draws on my whiteboard. Which is lovely. I love it. It is awesome.
Yeah.
I take pictures of it because I don't want to lose that. The hard part is when I want to go and actually put some, do some strategic thinking and put some notes out. I've either found one. I'm running into one of two problems. One, I can't find my markers, or two, they're just bone dry.
Yeah.
So I could.
It is tough to get good dry erase markers. There's no question. But no, we got ours home from school too because they're home from school too with the weather and everything else. They canceled school, and so but yeah, we'll see what happens. I've got one who loves to, when he knows the camera's on, he loves to see if he can make it on the camera. So but that's all right. We'll do what we're doing. It's all
I've
good.
Had that conversation with mine. I've had that conversation with mine twice now. I'm going, hey, Pops is going to be recording a podcast. I need you to go to the oldest kid if you have a problem. And I said, I'm going to be off the podcast at this time, so that way we can get it all done. They can come ask their questions and we can draw more pictures and stuff like that. So
yeah, but it all works out well. We got the end of the year stuff going on for us. Unless that's our time. If you're listening, it's the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So in fact, today is my last work day for the year.
Nice.
I've been, I always think it's important. A couple of things that I always do at the end of the year is I want to make sure that my office is almost completely clean. Like I want it to be like I'm walking into a brand new office the first day of the year. That's one of the things I almost always do is just gut the office. So it's like I fire myself at the end of every year and I rehire myself to come in and do the job and go, I'm walking in fresh. What do I need to get done here? And make sure everything's closed down. And then I usually kind of look at all my projects and like, all right, I got these three major projects I need to get finished. And that way, when I'm done with those three projects, I can get a sense of completion and fulfillment to help me feel like I get to start fresh going into the next year. So I've got one major project and one minor project to finish today. And once that's done, I get to kind of close down for the year. And I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that I'm going to miss in my new role. I don't have an office to go to at any point now. So cleaning out the office or, turning off the brain is going to become challenging. I actually just transitioned into a new role in a partnership with Pioneer Bible Translators in their church partnerships department. Be able to come alongside churches and just grab the rope and start pulling ahead with our ministers and churches to be able to provide content and resources like this podcast and much more that we're going to be able to put out. So I'm excited for that. But Brian, this is my office. This is where I work now. So fortunately, we'll find some other places outside of the office and coffee shops and stuff like that to work. But man, you want to talk about having that physical and mental just barrier and being able to go into your office in the church, clean it all out, make sure the desk is tidy, finally deal with the that scratch pad that you just left up under the mug of pens in your desk because I got to remember to get to that one day. Getting through all that, sweeping, cleaning, wiping things down and leaving, and then coming back to this just fresh start for the new year. I really enjoy that. And I'm going to have to figure out what that looks like with a work at home setting. So
yeah, I had a friend a while back who was in your kind of setting, ended up moving from sort of only office to hybrid to almost solely at home. And one of the things he did I thought was really smart is he made sure that his office door had a lockable door on it, like
Mm,
full, like almost like an exterior door. Like he had to have a
hmm,
key to get into it. And at the end of the night, when he left the office, he would close and lock the door with, and then
I could
walk
see that.
away and put the key upstairs.
Yeah, the brain kind of says, done.
That's locked away. We aren't doing that now. And then in the morning, when it was time for him to go to work, he'd go grab his key. He'd go downstairs. He'd unlock his door, and he'd start into his office. And it was just a thing he did. It was also valuable because he had some kids, and the
Mm-hmm.
kid. It kind of helped the kids know if the door is shut, Dad's at
Mm,
work.
Dad's working.
If the door's open, I'm on lunch, I'm on break, it's cool. But
Yep.
if the door is shut, Dad's at work. You don't bother
Yep.
Dad at work. He's in the office. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was a really smart idea, especially for those of you ministers who work from home, or if you're in a situation like what I've got here, where I have an office at the church, but I also
Mm-hmm.
have this space here at my house. And half of the space here is kind of for my home things, and half of my space here is for this stuff. But I kind of know when I come down here and I turn these lights on, I'm working when these lights are on.
Working.
When the lights
Yep.
are off, the kids basically know you can talk to me. If the lights are off, talk to me. If the lights are on,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the middle of something else. But I've valued that for myself. But I love the idea of a full locked, like, exterior door system.
Mm-hmm.
This is my work door.
Yes.
I'm going to my office. I just think it's a smart idea. So for those of you who work from home or have something like that, just an idea maybe to help you and your family help understand the
Yep.
difference between
Yep.
mentally, when you close and you lock that door at night, you're locking all of your church problems in that room. They
Mm-hmm.
will be there when you get back
Let
tomorrow.
it go. Yep.
So
Yep.
just something to think about. I thought it was a smart idea that I saw somebody else do.
Yep. And now that I'm at home full time and working fully remote, Pioneer is based out of Dallas, Texas. Pioneer Bible Translators (PBT) is based out of Dallas, Texas. So, in an effort to not uproot the family again and move, and twice in 5 years, we're going to be staying locally here in Louisville. So, this area that I'm in is good, but it's not like it's not your full time office good. And so we're gonna
Yeah.
put some effort into making it look a whole lot better, more aesthetically pleasing, so that I'm not just staring like what's behind you all right now, especially if you're watching on YouTube. If I'm looking through my camera right now, what you can't see is the foundation of the basement that we had some leftover paint when we were finishing the other part of our basement, and I decided, well, I'll just paint this wall. Um, it's like super dark gray, like just exactly what you'd want for creativity and emotional health while you're working in a basement.
Yeah.
So we're gonna put a little effort into it. So thankfully, what you guys can see watching on YouTube through the camera lens is what we've paid attention to for quite some time. Now I'm gonna pay attention to the things for me and my emotional health, mental health, for everything that I could see and hear and all that down here too,
Yeah.
because that's a big deal too. So I don't know, I don't want to
It
miss
is.
all that. But Brian,
So
here's the
let me
thing that's
shift
been
gears.
rolling.
Oh, good. You go ahead.
No, no,
I was like, we need to
okay,
shift gears. I got an idea, but you go ahead.
all right. So here's the thing that's been rolling around my head. I've been looking at some church trends. I've been looking at. We found ourselves in a particular niche of being able to partner with ministers on guiding them on how to hire and onboard better. One of the things that we've kind of found ourselves being able to walk into is to say, hey, here's a 4 interview process where you can interview your new candidates, and to be able to know they are the ones you want to be around. They know that you can answer that yes, they can do the job. They align with us theologically, and our people really enjoy them. And so we've kind of found ourselves in a place of guiding churches into that. And one of the things I'm kind of wrestling with right now is there's always been this statement, and minister, I know you're listening and you've heard this, you've probably said this. There's always been that statement that says a healthy children's ministry will grow your church.
Mm.
I Okay. Um, but in every research that I've done, Brian, I have only found anecdotal evidence. I can't find anything hard, no data that says yes, these churches that hired a new children's minister that created a healthy children's ministry saw this percentage of growth. I
Right.
I've only been able to find a few podcasts, a few podcasters, a few conferences where it's like, oh yeah, I when I got hired at this church, the children's ministry was blank, and then I did these things to make it healthy, and then 5 years it was blank. I mean, I can't find anything. So Brian, I don't know. How can we solve that? How can we figure out if that's actually true or not?
Well, again, I'm going to use more anecdotal, but you can find enough data to validate this idea that does having air conditioning in your car automatically mean that the car will sell? No. But if you don't have air conditioning in your car, pretty good odds it won't sell.
True.
I drive a at this point it's a 34-year-old car. It's got no air conditioning in it. Now, it's a Jeep. It is air conditioned at all times.
It is.
I got it
Heat, on the other
yesterday.
hand.
Oh man, I got it yesterday, and it's I got a hard top and hard full doors, and the entire driver's seat had a pile of snow in it because there's one gap it comes through. But either way, but I know that the person looking for most people looking for an everyday driver, they're going to have a hard time buying my car if I were to ever sell it.
Yeah.
Because of what it is. What I find is true in children's programming is, and I'll tell you, so we're all on the same page with this. I'm usually going to refer to it as children's programming. Some people will refer to it as children's ministry. The reason I refer to it as children's programming, I'm not trying to diminish what it does. It's just in our culture, I want people to understand the church is the ministry. The children's is a program of the ministry that we provide. So it's just a terminology thing. You can call it whatever you want. It's semantics, whatever.
Right.
But your children's program, if you don't have one, you will. I have rarely seen a church be able to grow without a healthy children's program.
Yeah.
But I have seen churches hire a children's person. That children's person comes in and just explodes that program. But as soon as that person leaves, so does the program. And I think one of the things it brings up, you talk about us being able to help people with hiring and onboarding. Churches really struggle with this one a lot. A lot of businesses struggle with it. Absolutely, churches are going to struggle with it. Ministers, we haven't been trained in this sort of thing. We don't know what to look for. We don't know.
Right.
We know once we get it what we don't like. But then what's worse in church world, I think where church world struggles in any hiring process over most other organizations is we see a need and we are desperate to get somebody into that position. So we're quick to hire. But once they're there, we're really afraid of firing somebody where we should be much faster to fire if they're an unhealthy fit. Must be, in my opinion, should be much more honest about, hey, dude, hey, lady, you need to consider some alternative options because this isn't going to last long. I know of other churches that will actually fire within the first 3 months, oftentimes, because
probation
we don't want you to get established here.
Relationships.
If you get established, right, all those are components. So I think one of the things that a church needs to ask in relation to children's ministry, although it's pertinent throughout all the positions you hire, is what is the end goal of the position? And you need to weigh out the positives and negatives. So I'll give you the two examples in children's ministry. Many people will hire a children's minister because they want them to grow the children's ministry, the children's program. Great. But that's not really the answer to the question I'm asking.
Right.
How do you want them to grow? Do you expect them to care for and develop and disciple the children you have in your church?
Yep.
Or are you expecting them to reach people outside of your church and bring them in? And those two are actually they're dialectic,
right?
Meaning that the two of them can live together, but they're opposing views. If I'm focused on reaching people outside of my church, I will have to do that at the expense of some of the families in my church. If I'm doing it to reach the people in my church, my program may not look as flashy to people outside of the church. So it may not be as big of a promotional material because I'm trying to disciple the kids individually in the church. You need to know that walking in. That's also true for youth ministry. That's true for worship. That's true for young adults, senior adults, life group. I mean, it doesn't matter. I would say it's true for looking for a lead minister, senior minister. What kind of person and what's the end game? And it's not just, well, we want to reach people for Jesus. If you can begin to answer that question before you start a hiring process, so many problems got solved.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. If that which is why we train churches, Brian. That culture, we interview for culture on the very first interview. If I live in Kentucky now. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, but I've got a blue shirt on. There's a lot of red in Louisville, and no, we're not talking politics. We're talking something greater, which is college basketball, baby,
Yeah.
because it rules this this uh, um, this state. We don't have any pro sports in the state of Kentucky, unless you want to count the NASCAR track in northern Kentucky. Which, to some of my family members, I apologize for saying we don't have any pro sports. That is a pro sport. My dad watches it religiously, and well, when I say watches it religiously, he gets the first 20 laps, falls asleep, and wakes
Fall
wakes
asleep.
up in the last 5. Oh,
Yeah.
good enough. The average
But
NASCAR fan.
that
We're good.
Louisville versus UK thing, though, man, that is a deal breaker in some churches in those
It
communities.
is. It is. So I'm sitting with the church recently, and I'm sitting there talking them through this process and going, "Hey, here's this process that we at Seats the Streets can walk you through. Here's the 4 interview types that we can train you on, so you can lead. Again, we're not wanting to come in and do this for you, and then have to do it again for you, then have to do it again for you. No, let us come train you. Let us give you what we have. Roll with it. So because you're going to hire anyway. I forget what the statistic was, Brian. If churches under 250 see a 22% have seen a 22% turnover in staff in the last 3 years from COVID
I
to
can't,
now.
I'm
So
surprised
so
it's
if
not even
you've got
higher than that. But yeah.
yeah, so you're gonna be hiring again really soon. So we don't want to keep these
Yes.
tools anyway. Sitting across the table, and this minister had a UK shirt on, and I said, "Hey, I see you're a UK basketball fan, or UK sports fan." Yes, oh yes, I bleed blue. Okay, great. Our number one interview is to interview on culture. I want you to be able to answer the question after the interview: would I enjoy going to a UK basketball game with this person? If the
Yeah.
answer is no, we don't move forward with them.
That seems
We
like
don't.
such a no-brainer to me, and yet it's clear that that is a struggle. We had our staff Christmas get together a couple weeks ago, and what was intriguing
Yep.
about it is, yeah, we brought our staff. We had uh, three staff members who went off staff this year.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them joined us for our staff Christmas party because we really just like being together.
Yeah.
Um, we are people that like each other. We may struggle with, man, I can't believe they did this. I can't believe we're going to have those professional like struggles on occasion,
Yeah. Sure.
but we like each other. And it is crazy how much I remember sitting on one of those first phone calls, and I always call it the for when I, before we developed this. Um, um, I used to have another one that was similar, and I built this model, and what I used to call it was my it's just my getting to know you. And I ask one question, one simple question, that is, so tell me about yourself. And I expect that phone call to take 30 minutes. And I sat on one phone call like that was an hour and a half, and I realized 10 minutes had gone by because this guy was boring me that bad. I had
Oh
not
yeah.
made it from the church to my house, and I told them before I even made it to the house, hey, thank you so much for taking the time. I don't think we're going to keep going. And like I told, like, this isn't going to
Yeah.
happen. I'm like, I can't stand talking to you for 10 minutes. I'm not
Yep.
about to want you in the office with me.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
that culture is a key, and understanding your church culture is key, because you need to know who you are, and then figuring out, what do we see this person doing. So
Yep.
let me give you some real practical piece to that, right? I talk about the understand the job description. Are you trying to grow outside the church or trying to disciple inside the church? Understanding that both should be present, but one will carry the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Both will be present, but one will carry the other. Here's a way you can begin to map this out in a really defined way, is you can begin to understand, what are your metrics of success. And I know that weirds people out, but follow
Woo!
me here for a
I'm
second.
gonna watch our YouTube views
I
just go.
know, I know. Whee! Roller coaster. Stay
Yay.
with me here for just a second. Give me just a second to explain this. If you have a church of 100 people, right? You have a church of 100 people. I can sit and I can show statistics that should show you should then have, for you to have a healthy youth group, you would need a youth group of 8, right? But if your average age in your church is 122, right? You're going to
We'll
struggle to
struggle.
find those 8. But if I can look at my church and I can say, I know my church has, over the course of a month, 12 high school, junior high aged students come through the doors who are consistent family members of people in our
Right.
church. We get about 12. Then it would be very fair for me to say, I want 50% of them. I want
Hmm.
60% of them actively participating. So now I can look at a person if I'm trying to hire a part-time person, or even if I'm getting a key volunteers to go, here's what we're asking you to do. We're
Right.
asking you to get 8 of the 12
Hmm.
to be here on a regular basis. Not every week. We know you get bad, but 8 of the 12 on a regular
Well,
basis.
you would get to define what regular looks like, or active. You
Yes.
use the word active.
Yeah.
So as you're going through this, you get the ability to go for our church, our culture, our area, right? The people around. Maybe you're a church in a cornfield, like you guys are.
Mhm. Yeah.
The church I was just speaking to is in a wonderful location in an urban area. So they've got a different culture than yours because they've got literally housing right around them. So you get to determine what does active look like. Those 8 could be active in this way based off our church and our culture. But for another church, it's not cookie cutter. It's not
Right.
Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps here. It is
Yeah.
defined for you and your church, and what does that activity look like for them? Yeah.
So let me show you an alternative, right? Let's say so like my church is going to be a little more geared toward if I bring in someone to deal with kids or someone to deal with preschool or someone to deal with junior and senior high, it's based around the numbers of students we currently have in our church. We want them to care
Hmm.
for the families and
Hmm.
disciple the families in our church. But if you're in a different model of church than we are, then consider it this way. You may say, for example, hey, we're a church of 150, but we're
Hmm.
surrounded by homes and families that we aren't really well connected to. We want a children's program that is able to get us the names, phone numbers, and addresses of 100 new families a year. Now, I'm over
Mm,
exaggerating that number, but let's say 100 families a year, which means now that children's person needs to be figuring out what are the big community events I'm doing and
there it
how are we
is.
gathering information from them so that we as a church can use that to interact more with those individual families. Now, that definition of success has been there. Their week to week program may not be all that sharp, but their big event program can be really impressive because you're
Yep.
trying to reach the people that your church currently is not, and you need to know who's
Right.
in your neighborhood. Again, both of those are legitimate arguments and legitimate programs, but they require two very different people. And if
Yep.
you're going to go hire someone, you need to know which one of those definitions of success you want first. I
Right.
would still argue children's ministry by itself does not grow a church. Children's ministry keeps the people you reach in your church,
Mm,
and it ministers and cares for the entire family within your church. That's
yep.
why that's such a key element. So I do believe it's important. I don't know that in some churches it may not be a staff person. You can absolutely be a volunteer. And if you're really
Right.
small, pastor, you win. But understand with the leadership of your church, what is the definition of success so that you can
Right.
recognize it. Am I here to grow
Right.
or am I here to disciple? Knowing
Right.
if you disciple well, you should be growing. And if you're going to be
Ideally.
growing and reaching new, you better be discipling. But
Yeah.
one will have to pull the other along.
Right. So one of the things that we've seen from a fantastic church coaching company called the Unstuck Group was years ago. I think it was 2013. I got it pulled up here. What does the article say? I think it was 2013. They put out this article. It doesn't really say, but it's the article on measuring church health. How many students should attend, and then measuring church health. How many kids should attend, right? Now, I do believe that Tony's gone back and has made statements that these percentages are now lower because of COVID.
Yeah, the new
The
COVID numbers are
average,
changing that a little bit. Yeah,
yeah, and they're still fluid right now. It's not something you can go boom. This is what the new numbers are. So that's why they
right.
haven't put anything out. I don't think. The average church since COVID lockdown, I saw a loss of 30% in average attendance. Like the average Christian church, Baptist, President, whatever church across the board, you're 30% down. Now, the new numbers for quarter four 2022 have shown that there's been a 26% uptick now because of that. And it's interesting, Brian. I don't know if you read that report from the Unstuck Group, their quarterly report. 26% uptick in in church attendance, but only a 3.8% uptick in giving.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
saw that part of it.
that would correlate that there is new people coming into the church, not sheep
Right.
stealing going on.
And it
So
takes
we
2 or 3 years for those people to learn to give if you're teaching it regularly.
two or 3 years if you're a freaking rock star church pushing it and discipling. It's 5
Yeah.
years if on average. So that we could be on the cusp of a fantastic ministry boom that's taking place in our churches, because maybe the average minister has come back and said, "Oh my, we need to pandemic proof our people in their faith." So regardless, so Tony had came out with these numbers that on a Sunday morning they've defined it that it's an average weekend attendance, right? Of your average weekend attendance. Now, minister, youth minister, children's minister, not Wednesday programming, right? Not Tuesday night programming, life groups, or anything like that, but your average weekend attendance when it comes to the worship service and the service times, 21%. 21% of your average weekend attendance should be made up of birth through fifth grade students. 21%. And the youth ministry numbers are 10%. The average is actually between 9 and 11. So he called it 10. The average is 10. So that means 31%, a third of your church should be made up. Almost a third of your church should be made up of birth through 12th graders.
Yeah.
And
now, Pastor, hear that for just a second. If that's not the demographics of your church, how can you expect a children's person
to knock it out of the park
in that environment? Right.
Yeah.
You've got to, pastor, lead minister, right? But preacher, you've got to be the one who leads this charge, who not just goes, "Hey, you go take care of the kids." You got to be the one who leads the charge so that those families are there, so that this person you just hired has the resources, the people resources, to succeed in their role. But if you don't have that in the church already, what they're going to create, and hear me on this one for a second, like youth ministers, children's ministers who do this, like, I love you, just hear me for a second. You're creating a cancerous tumor in your church.
Yeah.
Because if they can come in and explode this program, but they're exploding it with people who aren't tied into the regular activities of your church, you're going to create a tumor that could potentially be cancerous and destroy parts of your church because of the amount of resources and needs that have to be diverted to it. But along the way, those people aren't really getting tied into the life of the church.
Right.
That's why thinking through this in advance really, really matters.
Yeah, which is why I hate the statement, "Healthy things grow."
Oh, yeah. But unhealthy things grow too.
Yeah, cancer grows. It grows at twice the pace. That's why it's called cancer.
Right. When I eat healthy, I actually shrink.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. And so Brian, trying to kind of think through this and kind of wrap up of going, what kind of legs can we put on that statement? How can we find a way of showing, is this even true? I do believe that a healthy children's programming is directly tied to the growth, numerical growth of your church, right? I'm with you. I wouldn't call it programming. I do like the idea of ministry because it gets us away from. I in my mind, I slip too close to childcare when the word children's ministry is not there, right? I don't want to come into your church and you'd have childcare for me on Sunday mornings. Well, what in the world? I know that when we there were several factors when we moved to Louisville, when we were going into churches. I specifically asked my kids, I would like for you to go into children's class this Sunday. And of course, I've got a son who is just like his daddy. He's never met a stranger. He's excited. Yeah, Dad, I want to go to class. Like, you're my guy. And man, there were some churches that when we went through, we're talking small church to mega church. There were some churches that when we went into, they were rock stars at partnering with me. Yeah. And they partnered with me to know that this guy was well taken care of, knew where to go and anything. And then there are some churches that are like, yeah, it's down the hall to the left, I think. So
let me give you some real
family. I'm out.
Yeah, let me give some real practical, like, hey, pastor, here's what you can do. Church leader, here's what you can do. I bet somewhere in your church, there are some people who are just like something is wrong in their brain and they love spreadsheets and numbers.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, I ain't that guy.
We got a wonderful friend. And anytime I need help with that, I call him. I'm like, I broke it again, man. I'm sorry.
Right. So find that person. And here's what you want them to do. You want them to take any numbers you can find. Right. Which, if you followed us before, you should have some scorecards for your church. But
yes.
Take any numbers you can find over the past few years. And what I want you to do is I want you to track church attendance, average church attendance, and average children's attendance, youth attendance, life group, right? Track these other things. And what I want you to see is I want you to chart them. Something we found many years ago that was really intriguing for us is we saw that our church was in decline. Our children's program was declining at 3 times the rate of the church, which is a sign to me, right? What does that tell you? That means that the biggest point of loss was the children's program. That's where we were. That's where the hole was. It impacted our overall number this way, but the children's were here. So if you find that you're growing or decreasing, find those numbers and figure out, is this program bolstering and strengthening us, or is this the hole that the grains are falling through? Right. Knowing that information and giving it to your numbers people to go, can you track this, map it out a little bit, and tell us what insights we can find from it? There are people in your church who would be ecstatic about that. And knowing that for the different programs you run, right? And I don't care what the program is. You want to know the strength of how many people are in your choir. Like, for example, if you've got a church that has a big choir, what's the number of people in your choir compared to what your average attendance is? As that number rises and falls, how does that impact your, right? Number of choir performances compared to, I don't care what the deal is. You can pick the program you want. The map is still the same. Have them chart it and get some numbers people who love doing this. Have them chart it all for you and go, can you come back and give me some insights from the numbers you pull? If you find that you're in a situation like we were many years ago, where the church was declining at one rate, but the children's were declining substantially faster, that tells you, Pastor, things need to change now.
Yes, now.
Because you can't keep that up. On the other hand, if you find
that's a trend, it's
growing. Yeah. If your children's program is growing and your adults aren't, wait a minute. There's some learning there too.
Why? Because the kids can't get there without an adult.
Right. Figuring out, are we not ministering well to the families? Are we not tying the families well in? Are we not teaching in a way that's beneficial to them? What else is taking place that's making that happen? All of that information matters. And what you should hopefully see are numbers that trend in a similar line, not dead on accurate, but a similar line. From there, you can begin to figure out what resources to divert to where. You know what? Maybe this program needs a lot more financial support. Right. And we're going to maybe pull from here. We're going to do a little robbing from Peter to pay Paul. We're going to pull a little here to put here, because we see that when this number goes up, we reach more people in our community for Jesus. Right. It's worth that investment. On the other hand, if it's declining, it might be worth less of an investment. We keep giving you resources and nothing's happening. Yeah. Not a wise spend as stewards of God's income. So I would encourage you, find some of those people, utilize them well that way. Anytime you want to know information, go to them. Here's what I'm trying to find out. And here's the best collection of data I've got for you. Give it to them, see what you get. You'd be amazed what those kind of people think. If you're those kind of people, awesome. Good for you. Yep. You'd be amazed what those kind of people think. And then if you're like me, where you tend to be more of a communicator based, right? Let them get the data and the insights, give it to you, so you then can present that in a way that other people can sort of comprehend, and they'll understand why. Right. Well, why do we need to spend this kind of money on another staff person? Look at what happens when we do. Right. Right. Or why do we need to no longer have this person on staff? Look what happens when we do. Yeah. So that's my practical side of that.
When that person comes back with those numbers, that individual, oftentimes you'll hear us refer to them as a beaver. A beaver builds their dam very meticulously. You don't put the next stick on top until this one's perfect, and it is rock solid. It'll stop water with mud and sticks. Yeah. So anyway, when those people come back with that information, allow them to listen to the numbers and you listen to their feedback, because you're not going to be able to read the same thing in those numbers as they do. But when they start speaking, you start hearing that and connect it to the heart numbers and to the people that are sitting in seats. And then both of you can tag team to go, I think we're on the right path. So, Brian, wrap it up, rapid fire. You've now been hired at a church of 250. You've been handed a dry erase marker, because I just walked to the board and I erased every staff position. Yep. Who are the three positions you're going to hire, and in what order? Rapid fire, go.
So I'm going to hire 3 additional positions. Yep. I can't really tell you whether I'm going to hire full-time or part-time, but all full-time.
Yep. Go. First one is?
I still believe the first one would probably be, if I could choose, it'd probably be children. Okay. It might be worship.
Right.
And then the third one is all going to be based around individual strengths of the person. For me, the third one's going to be a pastoral care person, a life group's pastoral care person. For other people, it might be an executive person.
Right.
For some people, it might be absolutely like someone just to administrate their life groups, right? Their small groups. So I think that's all going to depend on the individual minister. But the first two are almost always, for me, going to be children's and worship. The last one is going to be youth.
Yep. We'll get to all that on a different episode.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get to that on a different episode. But I'm with you, Brian. If I walked into the same situation, my first two are going to be between what I know the strengths of the church are. If I walk in and there's somebody just rocking out the children's ministry, I'm going to hire the worship minister first.
Yeah.
If not, I'm going to go get the other one. And my third, instead of being a pastoral care, my third for me would actually be discipleship. I want to understand that what we are doing is using your phrases, right? Meeting people where they are and moving them closer to Jesus. And so I want to make sure that happens, because I'm with you. I was a youth minister for 11 years, guys. There's someone at your church that is unmedicated, that has ADD, that could do the youth ministry. Just teach them how to lead a Bible study really, really well, and you'll be okay until you can hire that position. All right.
Our youth ministry is run by 5 different people.
Yes.
All at the same time. One is that list maker spreadsheet guy. He runs it. Oddly enough, like, I'm key involved. I just teach. Like, he's the guy who runs it. Another guy takes care of all the fun activities. 2 guys partner together to take care of all the fun activities. One person handles to make sure that our introverts are being well cared for. So we run it very much in a full team format. And we currently are running statistically one of the healthiest and largest programs of students that our church has had in years, without a staff person in direct
with
ownership
with zero compensated staff members.
Yeah.
I mean, if you walk in and teach, you can make the argument that I walk in and teach, I'm the lead guy,
They ask me questions, but I just teach. That's all I know.
I just teach. Budgets, him, events, him, communicating to parents, her, So all right, folks, thanks for being with us. We're glad you're here. We hope our random musings of thinking through church growth strategy with children's ministry, children's programming for some of us here has been helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, go down below. If you're watching on YouTube, go down below and leave a comment. We'd love to interact with you. Love to be able to field those questions and to say, hey, here's where we're finding stuff. Or if you found this information that I've been desperately looking for, drop a link below. I would love to be able to research that and continue to go for that. And if you're listening to us on audio version, we're so glad you guys are with us. You can still go on and comment, like, subscribe, and rate on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening through your earbuds right now. So if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and give us a thumbs up and a like and subscribe as well. And share this with another minister friend. We want to make sure that we're giving you the content that you need to be able to go out and to create committed, growing disciple makers. That's our goal. That's our heart. That's what wakes us up in the morning. So for myself and Brian at Seeks the Streets, we will see you on the next episode. Take care, folks.
Thanks, everybody.